I just want to say hello and thank you to Keith and the people who organized this and allowed me to meet with you guys and speak to you. As Dr. March told you, I was just recently recruited here. I joined the faculty here in May, and so I'm in the process of getting things up and running in my own laboratory. And a lot of the previous speakers have spoke about really great attributes that Dr. March has, and I should say that not only is he an incredible visionary, but he's just really a very, very nice person. And I would also say that even before I came, when he knew that I was in the process of moving, he contacted me very excited about potential projects that we could collaborate on and things that our labs could work on together. And so I think that's a great testament to the spirit of research here at Indiana University and what great work is being done here. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the type of research I do, and it focuses on understanding diabetes at a cellular level. It's all preclinical research, meaning that I don't deal directly with patients except for the patients I see in my own clinic. But I'm looking at cells that make and produce insulin and trying to understand what goes wrong when somebody gets diabetes. This picture is a picture of what we call the islet of Langerhans, and I'll tell you a little bit more about those as we go forward. So I think most of you probably know this because if I don't, if I'm not mistaken, I bet there are a lot of people here who may have diabetes or have family members who have diabetes because, as has been alluded to, it's an incredibly prevalent problem in the United States right now. Basically, at the core is that you have impaired glucose homeostasis or regulation of glucose metabolism. There's something wrong with that process. And currently, about 8% of the U.S. population is affected by diabetes. That equates to 24 million people. Now, that doesn't count the people that we place in the category of pre-diabetics. So these are people who are beginning to exhibit signs of diabetes. They don't quite yet meet the criteria for diagnosis, but they're at incredible risk. So this is an even larger amount of people have prediabetes, and there's good evidence that both these problems, diabetes and prediabetes, are increasing as we have changed our lifestyles, made fundamental changes in our lifestyles where we're just not as active anymore. It's harder to find the time to be physically active because of the way our lives have changed from technology and job, so forth. And so this is a problem not only for older people, as I'll show you, but for younger people as well, and for children especially. So I kind of think about diabetes differently than Whitney. She's thinking about it from the peripheral tissues. I think about it at the core, which is the beta cell, which produces insulin. And kind of at the core of both types of diabetes, type 1 diabetes and type 2, is that you don't have enough insulin secretion. Insulin is a protein that allows your cells to take up glucose and use them to generate energy and do their normal activities. And if your glucose levels in the blood are too high because you don't have enough insulin, you're at risk for incredible complications. Some of those have been discussed already. It's the leading cause of blindness in the United States, leading cause of kidney failure, and people going on to dialysis. You can get problems in the peripheral nerves, which can be incredibly painful for patients and very devastating. And then, as many people have talked about today, an increased risk of heart and vascular disease. So I'm going to give you a minute to find your home state or your favorite state here on this map of the U.S. And I want to take you through some data going back to 1990. And I think my last slide ends in 2001 or so. And I want you to concentrate at the key to this is sort of the colors at the bottom. So the lighter colors, the lighter blue, meaning less incidence of diabetes, and then all the way up to yellow. So the lighter color blue is less than a 4% incidence of diabetes in the population, all the way up to yellow, which is, I'm sorry, that should be greater than 10%. But find your home state. I'm just going to say that my home state is West Virginia, which is one of the worst. It's up here. So you guys follow your home state as we go through this map of what's been happening to diabetes incidence throughout time. Right, take me home country roads. So, so you can see the blue is starting, the darker blue is starting to become a lot more common. That was where now we're seeing the medium shade of blue more and more states are affected, and now we've got some red states here. This is different than what we'll be thinking about in November, the red and the blue states. But you can see quite a few states, greater than 8 to 10% incidence of diabetes. And then, wow, look at that in 2001. Now, this is data just to 2001. It's 2008, and these types of maps haven't been created. But it's an incredible epidemic. This is one I like to show because I have 2 daughters, a 9-month-old and a 3-year-old, and this is data that has been modeled for individuals born in the U.S. after the year 2000. So that would include my 2 daughters, and I'm sure there are probably people here with lots of grandchildren who would fall into this category. Their risk of developing diabetes in their lifetime, if they're male, 1 in 3. If you're female, 2 in 5. So for every 5 children, 5 female or girls who were born after the year 2000, 2 of those will develop diabetes. Those are staggering statistics. And the problem with diabetes is that some people are being diagnosed at younger ages. So that means they have a lot longer to live with the disease and a lot more time to develop the complications. So before we go forward, I want to just give you some background vocabulary so you can take it forward as we're talking about this problem. There are 2 types of diabetes, type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. I'll define those a little better for you in a second. Both are diseases that affect the beta cell in some form. And this is a cell that's found in the islet of Langerhans in the pancreas. It's the only cell in the body that's able to produce insulin, this very important protein. And it has a lot of unique characteristics that make it able to produce protein. And that's really the core of what my research is, understanding better this beta cell. So these islets, they're small masses of cells that are found in the pancreas. They produce other hormones, and here I've shown you some pictures. These are isolated islets from a mouse under the microscope. They're just little islands of hormone-producing cells. There are 5 different cell types in the islet. The most important from my perspective is the beta cell, which produces insulin. This is another picture of some islets, and these are islets that I stained in the lab myself, and they're stained here with insulin, so the insulin's in red. That's the important protein, and you can see that's throughout the islet. The picture in the middle on the bottom is a diabetic islet, so you can see there's a lot less insulin in that islet. Panel F is a diabetic islet that's been treated with a particular type of drug, a diabetic drug, and you can increase the amount of insulin in the islet if you use certain therapies, and that can help patients a lot. So again, beta cells, the only cells in our body that make insulin, and studying the beta cells is really what I do. So type 1 diabetes, this is the least common type of diabetes. It's really only about 5 to 10% of all diabetic cases, and that's when your autoimmune system, your immune system, tells your body to attack your own beta cells, and it destroys the beta cell. It's not really well understood why that starts or happens, but for some reason your body gets mixed up and it kills its own beta cells. This is most often the type of diabetes that we see in children and young adults. Although, with this increasing incidence of type 2 diabetes seen in everybody, we are starting to see children who are being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes as well. Type 2 diabetes is by far the more common problem. This is about 90 to 95% of all diabetic cases in the U.S. And that's when you get a decrease in this peripheral insulin sensitivity. Your tissues don't respond as well to your insulin, but there's a core problem at the level of the beta cell as well. And it may be that what makes people at risk for developing type 2 diabetes, or actually it becoming diagnosed, is that something's happening at the level of the beta cell. Their beta cell is failing, and it's important to understand why that is. There are lots of risk factors. Medications can cause type 2 diabetes, other medical conditions. Carrying a little extra weight is certainly the most common reason that we see diabetes. And then the fact that we don't need to move as much in our lifestyles today. So the ultimate goal of the type of research I do is to find new ways to treat diabetes. And one of the ways that we might be able to treat it is if we create new cells or engineer a cell that's able to produce and secrete insulin. And these cells may come from stem cells, or they may come from other mature cell types that we find within the body. But both types of research offer a lot of promise for eventually trying to find a cure for diabetes. So the types of projects that I do, some of the themes, just understanding what makes a beta cell function normally is important, because then you can apply those principles to understanding better what happens when it's functioning abnormally. And then investigating new treatment strategies for diabetes. And sort of the very long-term goal that we have in this type of research is to essentially create an insulin-producing cell. So if you've lost your beta cells because you have an autoimmune disease that made your body kill the beta cells, or all your beta cells have responded to years of trying to keep up with secreting all this insulin and they've died, can we replace them? Can we give you back a beta cell that works? And then lastly, I'll talk some about a project that Keith and I are getting up and going, which is enhancing efforts at islet transplantation, and we'll talk about that, what that means in a second. We're going to talk just a little bit about some science, and I'm going to break it down for you and tell you why the beta cell is so unique. As I said, it's the only one that can produce insulin, and that's a protein. So what does it mean exactly to produce a protein? So we all have genes. You guys have heard about genes and DNA. So genes are sort of like the blueprint for our cells, and we need to be able to take that information in our genes and turn it into proteins. And so there's a central flow of information. We call it the central dogma in science, where you have DNA, you read the DNA, and you make RNA. It's just a little kind of carrier molecule that takes information from our DNA out, and then we use that RNA to produce proteins, which are important, and that's what helps each cell in the body do their job. So an interesting thing, when you think about it at the level of the DNA, is that every cell in the body has a copy of the insulin gene. But why is it that only the beta cell can produce it? And so understanding this helps us think about and provide a framework for how we might be able to create cells that produce insulin. Cells that weren't intended to do that at the beginning.